Welcome back to the Mind Over Matter podcast with your hosts Fatima Rajabali and
Fatima Zaidi.
It feels so good to be back. I feel like we haven't recorded an episode in literally weeks.
It's been a year.
It's been a year. But on that note, Happy New Year. We hope you've had a restful break, and this is a special episode that's sponsored by Seeking Sukoon, who, if you saw our last reel, make some really cool products that are supposed to help you with your spiritual journey towards God.
So some of the products that we were sent were a sajda slate, bukhur, an art subscription box, Islamic jewelry. So we received some really nice products. My personal favorite was the bukhur, which not only just smells amazing, but it also has like these reflection cards that you can put in this like tree stump.
Yeah.
And it's like du'as from the Quran. And I just thought that was such a nice way of creating like a space for yourself in your house, which is both Islamic and like reflective, like meditative space. So I really liked the company, and not just saying that because we're sponsored.
No, we genuinely liked the products. I personally loved the Sajda slate, and I know I already said this in the video, but one, it's such a unique product that I haven't seen before, but two, it's so useful to just have like in your wallet, especially as a student on campus. You can just whip it out whenever you need to, and you know, like you're going to be able to pray. You don't need to necessarily find a prayer room. So yeah. If you're interested in any of the products that we've discussed today, or if you check out their website for all the other stuff they have to offer, you can use our discount code MindOverMatter10 for some money off. Amazing. New Year is known to be a time about making resolutions, how can we change, and, you know, how can we get better from last year? Yeah. So, what do we want to achieve this year? So, I think this year, I really want to focus on like holistic well-being. I have like a few tangible goals that I've written down. I want to, this is so unrelated to like uni, but I want to eat healthier. Yeah. Not to achieve a certain goal of looking a certain way, but just feeling healthier mentally and stronger. And then also like actively making the effort to read more Quran. So I've been trying to do it a couple times a week, but if possible I want to try doing it like every day to stay consistent with it. So those are two specific goals. That's really nice. I actually didn't set like a proper New Year's resolution, but I feel like whatever I set will require like challenging myself and trying to step more out of my comfort zone. So I think maybe like saying yes to more things. So yeah, I think that's what I will try to do. I think one thing I really wish to improve is like public speaking. So maybe like articulating myself better. I don't know how I'm gonna go about that, but I think it's so funny you say that because I think you're a really good public speaker. I actually don't think you have anything to improve on. Oh, thank you. Yeah. You know what's so funny? I think you're a really healthy eater. Yeah, guys, probably the healthiest one like I know. Like your breakfast is always like avocado and toast and like yes, in terms of the content that I eat, but I don't eat enough is the issue. So, yeah. I need to improve on that. Yeah. Oh my god, speaking of healthy habits, I'm so bad with like my daily steps, like 10k steps. I think that's what I need to work on. Oh my gosh. It feels good when you start doing it though. Yeah, you're a walker, so for you, that's easy to say. But I just find like in this weather especially, I just can't leave the house like that. And also I work like remotely. Yeah, so I don't get much steps in. But inshallah, this year. Inshallah, this will be the year. So maybe we should get into our topic. So considering that it's New Year and a lot of you guys are probably heading back to uni now, we thought it would be a really appropriate time to talk about all things that encompass the uni experience. So whether that's assignments, dissertation, peer pressure. So I think at this stage in life, a lot of us can suffer from imposter syndrome. Yeah. So I think it would be nice to kind of define what it is and like how we can navigate it. Yeah. So what do you think imposter syndrome is? So I would say it's maybe feeling like you're not good enough, or maybe feeling like the stage of life that you're in, like you don't deserve to be there. Yeah. I think self-doubt is like a huge part of imposter syndrome. Yeah. And I think it can be like a super big enemy that we can have for ourselves. Yeah. It's so funny because when I think of imposter syndrome, I think of my friends who think they have imposter syndrome.
well, as in they have imposter,
They have it, but
they have imposter syndrome, but they don't actually should, because
Yeah.
they're doing so well.
yeah.
But they're not realizing it.
It's like the lack that they see in themselves doesn't actually exist, or rather, it's not magnified to us. So I guess, not to say it's all in your head, but I think, again, we just are like our own worst critics.
Yeah, totally. So what are some tools that we could maybe suggest to combat imposter syndrome?
So I don't know, like, specifically about psychological tools, but just speaking from like experience and what I think would work, I think reflecting, or even if you have to write down some things you've achieved and some things you're proud of, can be really helpful in giving you perspective and realizing that you've actually come a lot further than you think you have. And maybe also reducing social media use, or like LinkedIn also can be, although it's a good tool to like network and stuff, it also, I guess, can be unhealthy if you're consistently comparing yourself to people who, I don't know, are in like a further place in their career, or they've just gotten a new job. Then maybe that's going to make you feel imposter syndrome-y. But yeah, so then maybe reducing your consumption of those sort of things.
I think memory can also really help. Like, if you think about, so imposter syndrome might stem, for example, during exam season, where you
Yeah.
might think, oh, I'm not good enough to pass, or I'm not good enough to get a first. I think if you try and think about the fact that you've gotten this place to begin with, and
Yeah.
how hard you worked for that, or even if you don't think that you worked as hard and that's why you feel the imposter syndrome, because a lot of people worked so much harder than I did, yet I have this position. But I think you need to think about it in the grand scheme of things, that obviously your application was good enough that admissions officers chose you
Yeah.
to, you know.
I think maybe it's also just about reframing your mindset, because I think a lot of us feel like if we don't struggle for something, then we don't deserve it. But where does that idea come from?
Exactly
Because
that.
maybe you are just worthy and capable of having good things in your life simply because, not because you have to struggle for it, and that's okay
Yeah.
too.
Uni, you don't realize how difficult it can be. I don't
Yeah.
know why. Loads of people said to me before I started uni that, oh, it was like it was such a breeze and it was like the easiest time of my life. I thought personally, academically, it was like the worst. It was like the hardest for me.
I think those people, what's that like statement? I don't know. Because they've graduated, now they can look back on it fondly and they don't remember how rough it actually was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say it was a breeze.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't a breeze. There were periods of ease, and I think the social aspect makes it a much more like rewarding experience.
Yeah.
But definitely if we're talking about like dissertation season or like
Exactly.
exams, I didn't have exams personally, I had assignments, but that is really tough for a lot of people. So
Yeah, I think what also adds to this is because our academic journey so far has been so specific. Like, we've had teachers, we've had like classrooms which are, 30 people, and at that time it seems like a lot of people, but
Yeah.
when you're in a lecture theater with 300 people,
Yeah.
you're not going to get that one-to-one recognition.
that's so true. You literally feel like you don't, not that you don't matter, but do you know what I mean?
100%.
It's not like a personalized experience as such. I think uni is very like, you're on your own.
Independent, yeah. And I think especially as someone who like seeks academic validation, if you don't have that kind of relationship with your lecturer, it can be like really, and you won't, like, most likely you won't have that relationship with them because
Yeah.
they've got like 60 different
100
classes to
students.
teach. So I think it's realizing that this is a completely different way of learning,
Yep.
and it might suit you, it might not, but you just kind of have to adapt to it.
Yes. So I think something else that people may commonly struggle with at uni, or even outside of uni, is peer pressure. So when I was doing my research, one of the studies that I found actually said that younger adults are less successful at regulating desires when others around them are like enacting those same desires. So in the case of uni students, obviously we know that the older you get, maybe the more resistance you're going to have to like social conformity. You're your own person, you have a bit more individuality. But that doesn't mean that we're not susceptible to peer pressure. And also, if you guys remember the last episode we did with Syra, where she said the things that influence us aren't always on our radar. And so
like the company that you keep really affects
Exactly.
how you think and influences you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and you can probably relate that to university culture as well.
Yeah. A lot of societies, as part of their social events, mostly just do like pub crawls or like drinking socials. The nature of university is that you're going to have so many diverse students. Some of those are going to choose to not drink for religious reasons. Some of them are not going to drink for health reasons or whatever. And so I think it's in their best interest to try and diversify their socials. Like, why is it always drinking based?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sober society.
Sober society. I don't know if you felt the same thing.
No, 100%. I think so I went to a lot of, when I say I went to a lot of societies, I went to like 2 societies, which was Islamic Society and ABSOC. And obviously those didn't have any drinking involved, but the reason why I couldn't go to any other societies was because even Psychology Society would have things like pub crawls and like sip and paint, but the sip is alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously I couldn't engage in those activities, so I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
Even though, who knows, maybe like the psychology element would have been helpful to my degree, but I would never know because I didn't feel the need to go because of those events.
Do you feel like you missed out then because of that?
Well, I feel like I wouldn't want to be in that environment to begin
in the first
with.
place. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I feel similarly.
I feel like if I missed out on any of the other societies' events, like I totally don't mind, because ABSOC had so many different ranges of activities that we had. Like we had discussion circles, we had our own sip and paint. The sip was
To be
chai.
honest, even like hiking, which isn't necessarily a religious activity, but it just shows that you can have fun even if you're not drinking.
Exactly, 100%. And I think the same, even though we're talking about this as like a university culture kind of thing, but like on an individual basis as well. I think if you have non-Muslim friends, it can be really hard to plan motives that don't involve drinking. So that was something that I struggled with as well, like first year, when you're trying to make new friends and stuff. So I did stick to my own kind of, but so I think that can be difficult if you're going into uni. But hopefully you go to a uni which has an ABSOC or an ISOC.
I hope people don't take offense to this and take it out of context. We did mention this in the last episode. We're not saying don't be friends with non-Muslims, don't be friends with people who aren't like the same as you. It's just you do have to be aware of your own morals and also what kind of lifestyle do you want to maintain, because naturally whoever you're around you will become a little bit like them.
Exactly.
And I don't think it's wrong to say like, okay, these are some things that I don't want to do. So
100%.
that's fine. But also, when I was doing my research, I found that the World Health Organization released a statement and it said when it comes to alcohol consumption, there's no safe amount that does not affect health.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that I found really interesting, because I think a lot of people who are into drinking would say, no, but you can drink responsibly, or like, I don't know, if you restrict yourself to this amount, it's not bad for you. But this is actually saying that, no, it is always bad for your health, because it's linked to various types of cancer, including the most common types of cancer, such as bowel cancer and female breast cancer.
Whoa.
But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, because drinking culture is marketed as like a harmless social activity, even at university, but there is so much evidence which points to the health and psychological risks. And so how did a substance like alcohol become so normalized, and how has it become such like a lucrative industry? Like it makes so much money each year, even though people are well aware of the health risks associated with it. Like cigarettes, like the packaging literally says smoking kills. But people smoke anyway.
It will literally have like the most gruesome
picture.
Be like, nah, it's okay. But I'm totally gonna get cancelled for this, because I know this is common in Muslim communities as well. But vaping, I think vaping is such a fat issue right now. And I think a lot of people have clocked this, but our generation was very much over smoking. And then they recruited a really slick PR team to introduce fruity candy flavored pods. And I only discovered this recently, because I thought vaping was introduced to smokers as like a way of like
stopping
getting
their
over
addiction.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently one vape, I think it depends on the company, but one vape is equivalent to 12 cigarettes.
That's
And
crazy.
I know. And one cigarette contains 1 to 2 milligrams of nicotine, whereas one vape pod contains 60 milligrams of nicotine.
gosh.
That's literally a super dose of nicotine.
Guys, that you're literally worse off. They're like marketing it as something that's better for you, but it's really
Yeah.
not.
Like, this is not even coming from a judgmental space. It's coming from, like, we're concerned.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is that it was never made for, like, uncles trying to quit smoking, but to lure in teens
Yeah.
who would have never even thought about smoking.
That's so true.
So it's really kind of sad to see that smoking's brought back.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
again, just to reiterate, we're not saying all of this from like a judgmental point of view. People have like various reasons why maybe they, I don't know, smoke, or so we're not judging, but we're just saying, like,
Even as an escape, like, it's very...
I think we can acknowledge that it's not a healthy one, right? So I don't think it should be cancelable to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But also, I think recognizing that before, if you're not in uni, I think you will become exposed to a lot of things that you didn't think were as normalized. So I think that's kind of why we're talking about this that much, because as soon as you go into uni, these are kind of the things that you notice immediately, like the drinking culture, the vaping.
Because you wouldn't have had much exposure to that before, but then as soon as you are at uni, I think because there's like so much more freedom for you to just do whatever because you're not around your parents, especially if you've moved out, that's when you start seeing these sort of things. So yeah, that's why we're bringing it up.
That being said, uni can also be a really nice time to foster like social bonds. But if we're thinking about like struggles, I think loneliness can be quite prominent, especially if you've not moved out, or if you've come from a different country. So if you're like a
International student. Yeah,
I was
that's
gonna
a
say
really good
exchange
point.
student.
We can talk about our own experiences here. Like, how did you find that? Because you didn't move out for uni. Neither did I.
I didn't move out for uni, and I think for me it was a little bit more annoying because I was the COVID student.
Oh yeah.
So my first year was completely online. So I remember, because we were in lockdown, even if there were society activities, they would be all online. So I remember we did like an escape room on the laptop.
That's so sad.
It was really sad. But Among Us was fun. We played like games like that. Oh, I remember with you we played, what was it?
Scribblio.
Oh my god.
Goated game, guys, if you haven't played that. It's really fun.
Yeah, we basically played games online instead of real life, and I feel like that 1 year was really difficult socializing wise.
Yeah.
However, the year after that was quite nice, because I think because we had been so deprived of seeing people in real life, it encouraged us to go out of our way to like seek friendships and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely had its like benefits,
Perks.
which maybe you wouldn't. Yeah, it had its perks. In my case, I would say, I think I did feel a little bit lonely because I didn't know anyone from my sixth form who was going to that university, so it was really all on me to like meet some new people. And I remember in my first year being like super nervous to sit next to someone during a lecture and just, you know how typically they're like, no, just sit next to someone and then ask if you can go to like lunch with them and make friends. I'm really bad at doing that, guys, so I didn't want to. But luckily, actually, this girl came up to me and she asked me, so that took the pressure off of it. Then I remember someone came up to me and handed me a leaflet for the Islamic Society, and I went to one of their events. And then after I did that, I think I had a lot more confidence to like start going to different events and stuff. Then I got involved in ABSOC, and then I was like fine after that.
Oh my god, this reminds me of, because I was so scared about this whole social interaction thing.
Yeah.
I was on Instagram following societies, and I think I followed ABSOC, and at the time you were vice president, I think.
So I messaged you.
So you messaged me, and then I was like, oh my god, that's so nice. Like, I already have a friend now.
Aww.
So that was really, really sweet. If you're in ABSOC and you're a part of committee, definitely do that, because I think that really helps new students. Yeah.
I had the same thing. The president previously messaged me. Her name was also Fatima, actually. That's crazy, but yeah, I think that's a good way to make people feel welcome.
Yeah, 100%. And I think in general, if you're feeling lonely right now at uni, I would 100% recommend going to societies. I know we say this all the time, but I think from your course, it's a really nice way to find friends with similar interests. Joining things like calligraphy society would have been really nice, and like film society and that kind of thing, like going to things that interest you. We joined kickboxing for one
for like
day.
2 weeks.
Yeah, for 2 weeks. But then it was like 2 events essentially that we went to. So yeah, there's like a lot out there. You just need to find it. I think my friend in Manchester, she joined skydiving society.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
That's so cool.
That's sick.
UOB did not offer that, but if you're in Manchester, maybe check that out.
But even still, like, there are a lot of fun options out there.
Yeah.
Like Fatima said, you just need to find what interests you.
100%. So yeah, I think we could probably move on now to maybe post-grad stuff, or if you're in your final year, like career anxiety and like the pressure to succeed.
Good topic.
Yeah, so how do you feel about that? I think you're a recent graduate.
Well, I'm not going to act like it's something that I don't struggle with. As I mentioned before, I think scrolling through LinkedIn and then like seeing people who are a little bit further than you is a very real thing. I think when I've had conversations with my friends who've maybe graduated earlier than me, that, you know, they've all said what's meant for you is always going to be yours. So I guess just not to stress, do what you can, do what's in your capability, make sure like you're applying to jobs and stuff, but it'll come. Essentially, it's not gonna run away from you. You just need to make sure you're doing your part. Yeah, I think if you're like a non-STEM subject that doesn't kind of have like their job kind of immediately coming to them straight after uni, I think it would be really good to develop some work experience while you're in uni or even post uni. I remember for myself, I initially was interested in like clinical psychology, but as soon as I did some work experience in like hospitals, I realized, this is not for me. So even though it was a bad experience, I think I learned that, I don't want to specialize in this field specifically. Exactly.
And so I looked at like counseling, and I really enjoy that. So definitely be open to new experiences, and either build it while you're at uni or even after uni, and realize you're still young, so you don't need to have it all figured out right now. And most of these things, I think you realize like after you're in uni that uni is just like the start of things. It's not like once you do it, you're not just, gonna find your best job ASAP. Yeah, the real grafting starts afterwards. Yeah. That's a really good point. I definitely would encourage people to get work experience whilst they're still there. I think speak to your lecturers if you can, like after lectures, and ask them, I want to maybe go into forensics, or I want to go into, I don't know, I'm trying to think of non-psychology based like fields. I don't know, if you're in neuroscience or something, like what would be the best place to get work experience. And a lot of times they have connections themselves, so they can kind of refer you to places. So that's quite good as well. So definitely speak to your lecturers, speak to people on your course. You can even email PhD students. That's a good tip. So try that out maybe. But also in terms of like addressing career anxiety, I think there's a really nice quote by Imam Ali, which is, your risk is guaranteed for you the same way your death is. Yeah. So risk in like English is like your sustenance or provision, or just like, I guess, your earnings in a way. And I think this quote is really nice in the sense that when we think of death, it's like this really scary concept, but it's an undeniable truth that everyone is going to die. Like, that's going to happen. So knowing that your risk in that same way is decided and you're definitely going to get it is really reassuring. So just have faith that things will work out. Obviously, tie your camel and stuff as well. Do your bit and leave the rest to God. Yeah, I really like that. I think it takes the pressure off of you. So I know that the uni or like career advice we gave is kind of general, but that's just to keep in mind, like the audience we have are all from different like disciplines and whatnot. But if you are studying psychology or even sociology and you want more specific advice, do feel free to reach out to us. We'd be very much happy to help you. Or if you want a more tailored episode on those kind of topics, then we can do that. 100%, yeah. So as uni students, assignments and dissos are like huge elements of getting the grade that you need to kind of pass your course and stuff. Yeah. So if you're a final year student, or even someone that's in the middle of your course but you have like an assignment due right now, it might be a particularly stressful time. Yeah. So we thought it might be good to kind of go through some tips or like concepts that we kind of apply or try to apply ourselves, especially when it comes to exam season. Have you ever thought, I'm physically incapable of learning or revising?
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold, my favorite psychological concept, which is neuroplasticity, which is the idea that your brain is plastic. It's just a metaphor. But scientists before the 90s thought our neural pathways were set in stone. So the way we think, learn, patterns we form are the same through our whole lives. However, when they discovered neuroplasticity, they found that our brains are not fixed, but flexible, and we're capable of molding and adapting to changes based on our environment and experiences. So rarely used connections are deleted, and frequently used connections are strengthened. This is known as synaptic pruning. So basically, the more you expose yourself to revision, the more likely you are to remember it long term. What's fascinating is even after a car accident, if you've suffered from brain damage, your brain still has the ability to rewire itself by redistributing or transferring functions that are usually performed by a damaged area to an undamaged area. So that means that we can change our habits, learn from our mistakes, and even traumas. Now, of course, neuroplasticity as a Western phenomena is a relatively new thing, but Islam kind of figured this out 1400 years ago. We're always told no matter how far we've strayed, there's always a way back. So repentance and tawbah isn't about asking for forgiveness, but proving through your actions that you actually wish to change. After all, Allah says, I think in Surah Ra'd, Allah doesn't change the condition of a people unless it is what they are willing to change within themselves. So the point here, essentially, is that if you think you're struggling with revision, or it's like a new concept to you because you've not had to actively think about revising, like things just tend to stick for you, but at uni you're finding it a lot more difficult, there's always a way there because your brain is literally there. Like it's made to adapt to
as in you're more
growth.
than capable of doing it. You're
100%.
literally just, again, not all in your head, but yeah, it is that self-limiting belief.
Here's also, I think, the biggest struggle that kind of prevents you from being productive is distractions.
Yes.
So you want to be productive, but you procrastinate, which results in one of two things: a temporary escape or guilt. And this is because of this thing known as the gratification grip, which we know it results in the release of dopamine receptors, which results in addiction. And I won't go into that because, everyone knows that. But I think what's really interesting is how negativity bias results in hedonic adaptation. So we end up going back to things that give us happiness, even if they're bad for you.
I mean, that can be related to a lot, even just outside of procrastination.
Literally.
But yeah, that's really powerful.
So, according to scientists, on average, it takes 11 minutes to get distracted when you're doing a task. And I think that's pretty generous of them, to be honest, because for me, it takes minutes.
Yeah, I think my attention span is rubbish now.
Yeah. But I think the question then is, like, how are we addicted? So, they say that push notifications, I think there was, like, a figure somewhere. It's, like, there's, like, 25 billion push notifications are sent every single day.
Oh, my goodness.
So, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And every time you hear like a ping, you're gonna want to check your phone.
Yeah.
They even say that just simply having your phone sitting next to you, even if you turn the screen the other way, it still occupies your mind and urges you to want to check it.
I always find myself reaching for my phone instinctively.
It's just such a proper nuisance.
Yeah.
Okay, it's nice knowing all of this science and all that.
Yeah.
But what if you're too aware as well? Like, you know that, okay, I have a problem.
Yeah.
This is what I'm struggling with. And I know all the science behind it. My dopamine receptors are getting activated when I look at my screen. But how can that awareness actually help you? Like,
well, it's one thing to have the knowledge, but you have to actively implement it. So that's where I think the, like, actual tips come in, because it's very easy to say, you're addicted.
Yeah.
Sure, but how do I stop it?
Yeah. So that's what we're going to focus on now, which is some productivity hacks. A really good lecture on this is by Sheikh Hilli, which is called The Distraction Pandemic. So some of what we've said is from there. He suggests that the first part of tackling distractions is awareness.
Yeah.
So noting down where your mind goes when you're about to do something important. Also ask your family members what distracts you the most, and that's kind of what you need to work on. Yeah, what would you say is like a tip that you have when it comes to being distracted and kind of regaining focus?
Let me take myself back to uni. Okay, yeah. So I think something that helped me a lot, and this doesn't work for everyone, I would do study sessions with my friends. Now, we did have some that weren't always like, maybe we yapped too much and then we realized, okay, we need to rein it in. But in general, so one of my best friends, she was also at university, and she had a lot of assignments at the time, and I was doing my dissertation. So just by us like meeting up and going to, I don't know, the coffee shop or even the library, and just having like a couple of hours where we turn our phones off and we're just working straight, I found that really useful because I'm not sat there doing it myself. And I don't know, I think it just helps, what they call it, like body doubling or something.
Ooh.
Like it helps to see someone else also being productive because it kind of gives you a kick to do the same.
Yeah.
So I found that useful. But also I think setting small achievable goals for yourself is a really good one, because if you're just thinking about like the huge mountain of tasks you have to do, or like the huge end goal, or like I want to achieve it first, that can feel hard to achieve. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to work at this task for like 10 minutes each day until I slowly get there, I think it becomes a bit easier.
I completely agree with you about the group study sessions. We did a lot of that together as well when it was uni. I mean, we'd have like 20 minutes of work and then like 50 minutes of yap, but they were still useful, like especially when we had last minute deadlines. We got a lot of work done.
Yeah.
I think this wasn't even like necessarily a group study session that I'm referring to, but I remember when my friend, one of my best friends, was trying to get into uni for dentistry, so we were like kind of prepping for like her interview. And it's so funny because I don't actually like have anything to do with dentistry in my like I'm not gonna need it, but I learned so much just from listening to her talk about specific concepts. Like now I know about gingivitis, I know what amalgam is, I know what results in inflamed gums, and you know what? I say that it's not useful to me, but I've actually like been doing things to actively avoid that, because I'm like, it's low-key easy to get
so
gingivitis.
That's actually jokes.
Yeah, but the thing is, when people close to you kind of talk about concepts that you're trying to learn, or not even like actively trying to learn, it kind of sticks. Like this was years ago, but I still remember that.
Wait, that's really smart actually. So you're saying it can also be useful to study with other people, and maybe sometimes like saying things out loud. Like I've heard, if you repeat something to someone else while you're trying to learn, it kind of makes it stick more. Yeah. Like if you explain it in a way where you're trying to teach them, even if they're not going to be using it.
Yeah. This is going back to A-level psychology, but there's like the multi-storm memory model and the working memory model, and they talk about how like one of the most effective ways to learn is to have verbal rehearsals.
Yeah.
So that, I think that is talking about it on like a personal individual level, but doing it with friends, I guess, sticks even more. Yeah.
Damn, that's so cool.
Yeah. I think one thing that I like to do is kind of reconditioning myself. So if we think psychologically speaking, we all know about Pavlov's dogs and how they learned and made meaning through association. So I think conditioning appears to be like the cornerstone of human psychology. So I think trying to apply that to your work might help. So
what do you mean by that?
Essentially redefining the task. So instead of focusing on why the task is so annoying and exhausting to complete, focus on why it's important to just get it done.
Yeah. Like taking the emotion out of it.
Yeah, because I think that's something that I really struggle with. Like when I'm doing work, I'll message my friend like, oh my god, I've got all this work to do, instead of just,
just doing it.
Get on with it,
Yeah.
Obviously easier said than done. But I think if you try to think of learning as something that's actually enjoyable, then it makes you want to do it, as opposed to like, oh, this is such a burden on me and I have to do it.
That's true.
So so I think that's one thing that I try to do.
Similar to that, I would say act on bursts of motivation as you're experiencing them. This is what I found. Like a lot of times I would maybe like put a task off for tomorrow and be like, oh, I'll do it when I have a little bit more energy. And then I don't know, maybe like in the middle of the night I'll be like, oh, I'm in the mood to do that. Act on it when that moment arises, because you don't know when you're gonna have like another burst of motivation. So
this is so cool, because it's all coming back to me because I learned about this in psych. But That's literally known as like the flow concept.
Okay.
So, you know, when you're like in the zone. So, yeah, definitely take advantage of that if you have those bursts of motivation. Yeah, I think another thing that I try to do is, changing up your environment when you're studying.
Yeah.
So, I think one thing that can be really fun is like maybe checking out different cafes that you can study in. I'm really guilty of this. Like when I get lazy, I will leave things last minute, so I end up having to do it at home in my bed,
Yep.
which is not the best place to study. Libraries are great. Different study spaces at uni, there's like thousands. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but at
There's
least
a
20.
lot. Yeah, there's a lot.
So definitely try that out. If you're at UOB, sorry if you're an engineering student, but I definitely recommend the new engineering building.
I love the engineering
It
building.
is so
that was
good.
one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was my go-to spot, and I actually did a lot of work there. So, and what else could you do?
Also, it's just like a little reward. It's nice to like go
It's
to
like a reward.
Exactly. To not be like in your room or at home. Go to a new place.
Remind yourself you're paying 9.25k.
Yeah, that works too.
So yeah, get your money's worth. Another useful tip. I didn't initially believe in this because I like if I have like an essay-based subject to do, then like having a timer doesn't necessarily help.
Yeah.
But doing Pomodoro when you're studying with other people can be really helpful. So you have like 45 minutes of active, let's say, essay writing or revising. Then you have like 10 minutes of you talking to your friends, like as a reward, and then continuing that cycle. So that can be useful.
I can see why that would work for some people.
Yeah.
I think I tried that once, but I didn't find it to be the greatest for me personally. But I can see why it would work.
Yeah. I think because I was doing group study, it wasn't useful in the sense that like we'd have 45 minutes of studying, but then our break time would always go over.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So what we'd do then is that we'd punish ourselves by doing like extra. Yeah, so instead of the 45 minutes, we'd add on and it would become like 55 minutes. So yeah, you just have to discipline yourself when it comes to that. Then another thing, which is low-key cringe, but I think practice self-compassion. I think we always tend to believe that we're not worthy of achievements. I remember I came across this post, and you've probably seen me repost it on TikTok. I thought it was really relatable. And it was basically saying about how whenever I complete an important task, I don't feel like I've achieved anything.
I saw this.
But rather just a mild sense of relief that it's over.
Yeah.
And then I end up worrying about the next thing.
Yeah, so real.
So at first I was like, lol, that's so funny. But later I was like, that's so peak.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on the critical talk element.
Yeah.
But I've mentioned this before. I think my biggest motivator is if I wouldn't let my friends talk to talk about themselves like that, I shouldn't be a hypocrite and do it to myself.
Yeah.
So basically work on fixing the internal cues to fix the external cues.
100%.
Another really basic one is like obviously rewarding yourself. So giving yourself something to look forward to, having a fun social planned after exams or assignments can make it easier to get through. Last Ramadan, so I remember I was sitting with my friend Alia and we were like, what can we do to motivate ourselves to get the work done? And then she was like, we'll buy ourselves a Vela scarf. And we were like, oh my god, you know what? That's actually really good because
That's smart.
they cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's worth it if you're rewarding yourself.
Yeah. On that note, rewarding yourself thing is really important because yes, uni is all about like academia and stuff, but you do need to have a balance too. Like you can't just be study 100% of the time because you're gonna burn out. So yeah, balance it out with some nice like social activities as well. Make sure you're still seeing your friends every now and then.
And that's pretty much us on the note of uni, academically studying and things like that. I'd say obviously take a break as well where you need to. One thing that's really good for taking a break is the Khalik box by Seeking Sukoon. That was definitely not planned. But we recently tried the art box ourselves. Their recent one was on painting Lebanese tiles.
Yes.
And guys, when you see this video, you will think these guys are not artists, and we're not. It was a really nice way of escaping in a good way, you know?
Yeah. I think it's a really cool concept and it could be a particularly useful product for you if you're a uni student because as we said, you need to have like a well-rounded lifestyle. You can't just constantly be studying. So then if you have this art box and you just like whip it out, maybe as a little reward after you finish your assignment, it's just nice to escape, relax, do some painting and unwind.
And reflect as well. It's really
Yeah.
good for that as well. Definitely recommend that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a nice way to end today's discussion is it's a new year, so there's different things that we're probably afraid of and are looking to improve.
Yeah.
So there's a quote in the Quran that says, "Whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out and will provide for him from where he does not expect. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Indeed, Allah will accomplish His purpose."
Wow.
Another quote from Imam Ali that kind of summarizes the same concept well is that if you fear doing something, then do it because your fear is greater than the deed itself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying that it's not the task itself that's daunting to us, it's just...
The intensity of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Seeking Schoon, for sponsoring today's episode.
Thank you.
We hope you guys took something from it. Please feel free to like this episode and comment. Download it. Yeah, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
And maybe even comment, give us some suggestions for what you want to hear next, because it's been a while since we've released an episode, and, well, it would be nice to get back into like a consistent schedule with posting. So if you have something specific you want to see, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.